Hi, everyone here and around the world. Good news. We have broken through 266,000 subscribers. So please help us keep growing. If you haven't subscribed, please click on that red button on your screen. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us with YouTube. Also, on Thursday nights, after each live Wednesday night, Earthfiles YouTube channel broadcast, we podcast the new Earthfiles reports. And tonight's Earthfiles has a first-hand military eyewitness report about UFOs that have been going in and out of Earth's oceans at high speeds such as 700 knots, which is 805 miles an hour. And these mysterious water phenomena were monitored during and after World War II. The Navy calls the fast-moving underwater craft, quote, unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, close quote. The eyewitness tonight even saw a USO craft burst out of the Arctic Ocean at high speed without any water dripping from the alien craft. The physics of that has haunted him ever since. Other military sources have told me that the United States began to catch on during World War II, that there were alien craft in the war skies linked to Germany's Adolf Hitler. And by 1949, after the war, scientists and engineers were studying the problem of anti-submarine warfare. And that led to building a chain of underwater hydrophone arrays linked by cable located around the western Atlantic Ocean. Eventually, those underwater hydrophone arrays would evolve to the American government's SOSUS, an acronym for Sound Surveillance System. SOSUS then evolved to SIRTAS, the Surveillance Towed Array Sensor System shown here in this May 25th, 1987 ship photograph. SIRTAS enables the U.S. Navy to detect quiet nuclear and diesel-powered submarines and to report real-time surveillance information on potential underwater enemies to U.S. Navy commanders. Recently, a man who served in SIRTAS contacted me in Proton Mail, who I will call John Smith. Quote, I am a 17-year U.S. Navy veteran, plus time, with Hughes Technical Services and Booz Allen. I was an OTA analyst, which is Other Transaction Authority for prototype research, and a shipboard analyst with the SIRTAS program. I was in the top 1% of my field and have some very interesting information concerning underwater USOs, the unidentified submerged objects, that we encountered in the SOSUS sound surveillance system to detect submarines and later in SIRTAS, close quote. Born in 1955 and raised in the Great Lakes region, John Smith joined the U.S. Navy on June 20th, 1972, and got out with plus time on May 30th, 1991. Can you take me to whatever is the most dramatic encounter information that you have had in your career in the Navy about unidentified submerged objects and the relationship of USOs to UFO, UAP, and all things in the sky?
I started tracking things doing over 100 knots up to 700 knots. And I knew that was not a diesel submarine.
And how did you come to find out what it really was?
As the SIRTAS leading petty officer, I got read into it. These things were amazing what they could do. They would just pop into the water, and you would see it maybe doing 50, 60 knots. I've seen them go as slow as almost a hover in the water and then speed up. I think the fastest one I actually saw myself was about 700 knots.
Did you ever have anybody say to you that the Navy and or CIA, NSA, DIA, Geospatial had direct evidence that these objects were in the extraterrestrial technology category?
No, not while I was in the Navy. You couldn't get an officer to put that out of their mouth. But civilians doing the same thing, it was totally different.
Okay, you left the military, Navy, you went into the civilian world, and you are still dealing with the same unidentified submerged objects?
Yes, technical services offered me a job and pay that I couldn't refuse. So I took the job with Hughes Technical Services, and I spent a few years in the Arctic Ocean, South China Sea, and north of Hawaii.
Can you go into details of what you saw in these three different areas that relate to unidentified submerged objects, which in other interviews that I have done with people in military and or in intel agencies, unidentified submerged objects are extraterrestrial, and that I have been told flat out that our government has known for a very long time that advanced extraterrestrial technologies go in and out of the oceans and bodies of water of planet Earth.
Yes, they have full control of the skies and water.
They have full control of the skies and water.
Yes, nothing we can do to stop them. So,
And have you had anybody talk to you about examining an unidentified submerged object?
well, you have to remember this is wintertime, and it was very rough out. We were out working on the back deck. I remember it was dark the entire time. It had to be December 1992. It was kind of rough out. So, everybody's paying real close attention to what they're doing so they don't get washed overboard.
This is where?
This was just south of Spitsbergen, Norway, heading north. That's where they keep the seed vault.
And you are now how far over the Arctic Ocean?
100 miles or so, maybe 2.
And describe in as many details as possible what you saw, heard, and learned.
I didn't see it at first. I heard it. It sounded like a dishwasher that was hitting something. When it breached the water completely, it was completely silent. I didn't see any water dripping off of it, nothing. It was just a metallic looking, it was like twilight. You could see, but you couldn't see good. It was kind of a gunmetal gray looking. It had just completely came out of the water, and I didn't see any water dripping off of it. That amazed me.
How do you explain that?
I think their technology is just a whole lot better. They surround themselves with some kind of field, because otherwise, if they go down to 15,000 feet, they'd be crushed. Something is preventing the pressure from crushing them.
And what was the shape of that object that you saw come out of the water and was not dripping water? What was that shape?
Boomerang looking.
Boomerang looking. Have you ever had, let's say, a theoretical discussion with somebody in the military or science about this as a fact, that there are these objects, they're called unidentified submerged objects, that they have the ability to come out of the water with no water dripping off of them, and the association is with a field around the craft to protect it?
Exactly. And yes, we sit back in our area where we're working and we discuss it because we're in a secure area. It's like a skiff. So we could talk about anything we want in there. And we discussed it a lot.
Were there any lights in any pattern anywhere on the boomerang?
I saw no lights at all.
And were you seeing then this boomerang object just from the reflection of the fading sun in the Arctic?
Exactly. You could see it. I had a clear shot of it. It wasn't that far away, maybe a mile.
And did it appear to be silver?
Kind of a gray, almost like a Navy ship gray.
And what did this unidentified submerged object that came up and was making this dishwasher sound, and then you saw it and there's no water dripping, what else did you see? Were you able to track it moving in a specific direction?
It went up at about almost a 180 straight up, and it was gone within probably 10 seconds.
And you're looking at them in what frequency, in what technology?
I can't talk about frequency, but I could say it was very, very low frequency.
And you're looking on a screen, and then you can produce paper copies of what's on the screen.
Exactly, thermal prints.
In your career, did any of these unidentified submerged objects end up being the discussion of, let's say, superior officers, maybe even aerospace engineers, in which you are submitting evidence to them? Are the words extraterrestrial, aerial object, part of the discussions that you had with your coworkers privately?
Only with the ship's master.
And what was that discussion with the ship captain like?
It upset him because he didn't like the idea of having something underneath him that large. He just called them aliens.
And when he called them alien, what was the discussion like?
We just agreed with him. We knew what they were. We all knew that we have our own craft, but that is not ours. We don't have that technology.
We don't have that technology. So whose technology is it? In part 2, next Wednesday, May 15th, you will hear John Smith answer that question from words and images that he was shown on a highly classified digital iPad. And one of the answers is extremely surprising. And in last week's May 1st, 2024 Earthfiles YouTube channel broadcast, I asked you all a question that has been on my mind a lot since. How many of you think that opening up the truth that extraterrestrial intelligences are here on Earth and have been for a long time, that might help humans stop fighting and killing each other if we were told the truth? After we faded to black last week, around that question at the end, I found an email from Mary White Jasper, who gave me permission to share her thoughts with you tonight. Quote, Linda, it is a fascinating thought. Some argue that the realization of extraterrestrial life could unite humanity against the common curiosity or a threat, potentially reducing conflict born out of our differences. However, others believe that it might spark new tensions or fears, and ultimately it's hard to predict how such a revelation would impact human behavior toward war. Despite advancements in technology and education, the roots of conflict often lie in complex issues like power struggles, resource competition, ideology, and historical grievances. Technology and education can mitigate some of these factors, but they don't eliminate them entirely. Additionally, human emotions, biases, and societal structures play significant roles in perpetuating conflict. Achieving lasting peace requires addressing these underlying causes comprehensively. If we consider hypothetical beings, such as tall whites, with extended lifespans, their perspectives might offer valuable insights into human conflict. Until humanity collectively evolves to a point where our innate tendencies toward conflict and aggression are transcended, we may lack the capacity to responsibly handle the revelation of extraterrestrial intelligence. Our current state of development might not allow us to harness such knowledge for constructive and peaceful purposes. Sincerely, Mary White Jasper. And I thank you, Mary, and all that have replied. And I want to say hello with enthusiasm to Ian Holling in England, who's standing by with your feedback and questions and comments from tonight's chat. And Ian, welcome. It is I don't think people realize that you stay up into the wee hours of the night to do weekly Earthfiles, which is so appreciated. I want to thank you as we go into now about what are people's reactions to the John Smith interview, and the fact that more and more is coming out that is recognizing. I'm hearing more and more pieces, and that's what it is, pieces of information, pieces of evidence that these SOSUS, that we'll call it the spaceships that have gone into the waters and then come out without dripping water, they have been a fascinating subject for a very long time on this planet. And I wonder one thing tonight, Ian, it would be very interesting to know if there are Navy, Marines, Army, Air Force, are there people in our audience tonight who may have themselves served and that they may have their own insights tonight? If there is, I would love to hear from you. But I'm transitioning to dear Ian.
Hi, Linda. Yes, it's great to be here tonight, and it is late here in the UK. It's 2:47.
2:47.
But it's good to be here with everybody else. Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. You asked the question in the introduction to this episode, part 1. How do UFOs burst out of ocean waters completely dry? Paladin 2004 says it's called the sessile effect. Sessile effect. Same thing that prevents craft from burning near the sun. Tracy Murray, I think she's in Scotland and probably staying up late as well, says, I would think it's some kind of skin, but in saying that, we really don't know, as their tech is so advanced compared with ours. Anyway, she says she's this is a favourite time of her week, so looking forward to an answer from that one.
Well, the word skin, I first heard that in 2014 from a physicist who worked at Area 51, S4, handled the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, and the aluminum, iridium skins. He is the one who educated me first about the bismuth, magnesium, zinc, because he had heard me with Art Bell on Coast to Coast AM. And ever since, being able to talk with him in depth several times in 2014 and a couple of years beyond, I have, it's been impressed on me that we're dealing with technologies in which the subatomic level is incorporated. That skins can have different properties, that what we are dealing with in extraterrestrial technology is far advanced from what we're able to do. And Brad and I, who have been sneezing all day, I'm having to take coffee to keep going. Sorry, thank you. The issue of being able to work at subatomic levels, understand what something working at a subatomic level and other levels into matter, being able to do different skins that would do different operations. That is part of the sophistication of the extraterrestrial craft world that we have seen, been able eventually to document some of it. But as far as I know, we have not been able to reproduce things like putting in control iridium atoms in straight lines and at 90-degree angles inside of pure aluminum. That was one of the skins in the craft from which the bismuth, magnesium, zinc layered material came, as I understand it. And that the aluminum and iridium was on the outside skin, and the bismuth, magnesium, zinc was on the inside, and the two paralleling are what gave the other intelligences constructing, building, using that craft, that it is a very, very difficult physics, and that I know up until 2018 that there was no lab that was able to go down to the level of iridium atoms and then manipulate them subatomically. And so we're still at an age, a transition from everything that I've learned, where we can be in awe of what we find in some of the, we'll call them UFO, USO craft, that we can't reproduce yet without their help. And that I have been told that the tall whites are some of the ones who have been trying to help in some places, but that they also block certain developments because we are not considered to be a species that has evolved enough past war and conflict to have more sophisticated technology that would put us out into the universe perhaps too soon. And so that's sort of the big box of my comments, Ian, on that.
Okay, Christopher Alexander in the super chat tonight says, have you heard anyone discussing the possibility that the invisible protection around the USO could be some kind of quantum level separation from our physical reality rather than a plasma type field? So people are talking about the actual physics behind it. Hardy Har 76 says they have a thing called border layer control, a material that's made in space and pushes back the waterline by about 5 milliliters at the push of a button. I think they mean 5 millimeters, but that's the bubble that they all sit in.
Ian, let me ask a question. Assuming that person is still in the chat, what is the basis of your information? Do you have a military career now or in the past, a science career now or in the past, a medical? I would like very much to know the context for some of the comments when you all are saying that you have information about something subatomic or physics of craft. Why would you have that information? That's what I would really like to know. And it can come to me through proton mail or hard physical mail too. Ian works very hard and extremely well at trying to get to me the emails and the messages that come after each show. And sometimes there's so many, there can be hundreds and hundreds of emails that it's hard to get through it all. So if you have firsthand information that you would like to get to me and that you haven't heard from me, it could be that it's because that there's an overwhelming amount of emails, and then communicate with, I guess, Ian, you prefer to go through Earthfiles as well, correct?
Yeah, they can email you at earthfiles@earthfiles.com and also CC me in at ian@earthfiles.com, and then you'll get our attention, and we'll look out for your comments or questions or experiences that you want to share.
But we all need to have more and more information from people who actually are working now or have worked with, whether it's tall whites or Nordics or Greys, inside the government system, because as far as I know, that has been the truth, that there have been collaborations with at least those particular non-humans, going all the way back to World War II and William Mills Tompkins' book about his working with blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white-skinned, quote, secretaries in work that he was doing for our government, but that he learned or was told that some of them were ETs from another, I think from Aldebaran, that solar system. And people who say, oh, that must be nonsense. No, William Mills Tompkins was a brilliant mind who worked with our government as a young man with a genius, and he came to be read in to some of the information about post-World War II, and that the blonde, blue-eyed Nordics were a representation of some ETs that were trying to work and collaborate on this planet. And what we need more and more are people who have firsthand knowledge that are still alive to get in touch with me. I would love to do more interviews like I did with the 5 hours, talking to William Mills Tompkins about everything that he learned from a young man to much older, working with a variety of programs, which did include a lot of knowledge about our first going to the moon with Neil Armstrong. And he talks about a tremendous amount of detail that he learned concerning the moon program and the fact that non-humans were watching and observing. And that's in my Earthfiles.com, my huge, huge website that has hundreds, literally hundreds of reports that I have done since 1990s. And one of them is extremely long, from that 5-hour interview with William Mills Tompkins. And it would be, I think, fascinating to a lot of you to do a search at earthfiles.com just for William Mills Tompkins. And Ian, I know that you're familiar with that work as well, and that it is perhaps one of the few really honest voices before he passed on to another dimension.
I absolutely am familiar with that work, and that brings back an experience that I had when I was playing your original interviews with William Mills Tompkins in a little outbuilding on the edge of the property that I live on. And I had a black helicopter, well, a dark-coloured helicopter that suddenly arose from an area I didn't think they could even fit a helicopter in, with the door slid back. And I thought, what's going on here? Is somebody listening into me, listening into Linda, playing this important information? And it was so strange that Sunday morning. But I've got to move on now to another comment from Matthew Carter 4508. Says, how about why the USOs will be under the water in the first place? And he draws attention to the suspicion that maybe the ETs are using the...
We've lost you, but...
only 25%, I believe, has been...
I don't know.
Been mapped to. Can you still hear me, Linda?
Okay, it dropped out. If you can repeat whatever the percentages were.
We'll get Brad to cut.
Oh, Brad's going to call back.
I think that the water... Yeah, Brad can call me back.
All right. Should I go ahead and... Because I have some important information to add here. Some of you have heard me describe what I think is the single most important meeting that I personally have ever had as a journalist and a reporter, going back to December of 1999, about UFOs, extraterrestrials, the length of time that our government knows that non-humans have interacted with this planet, genetic manipulation, all of it, in the 7-hour meeting that I had in December of 1999. And the source for most of the information was a man retiring from the Defense Intelligence Agency after 23 years. December 1999, he had been in for 23 years. And he explained that his role, title, and work was monitoring and analyzing the conflict of 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations who have been using this planet in a variety of ways for, this is the number he gave me that night, 270 million years. In the last 4 years, the aerospace source corrected it and said, Linda, I've heard you say that the DIA analysts talked about the role of ETs here from 270 million years. He said the number that we use in projects that I worked on in aerospace was 278 million years. And the reason, I've always said, what was it? What is tied to that period of time? Today, it is still supposed to be highly sensitive. But it went on in evolutionary information about where did 3 competing extraterrestrial civilizations on this planet, in this solar system, where were they to have been evolving and working on genetic manipulation of surface life, which included us? And the answer that the DIA analyst gave me that day into night of December of 1999 was the Nordics, the blonde, blue-eyed, white-skinned who look like Scandinavians on Earth now. They like to go down below the basins of the oceans and the seas. You would go down through the waters, you would get to the bottom, you continue through the soil, the muck, the mud, through rock, and you come out into gigantic caverns, one that has been described in science journals just in the last 4 or 5 years, where a mountain the size of Antarctica could fit in one of the huge caverns in the sort of, we'll call it the center portion of our planet. And that these are areas that the Nordics have gone into for all of these millions of years. And that the Greys prefer to be inside of rocky, high-altitude mountains like the Himalayas and the Andes. That there is a reptilian group that are in conflict with the Greys and the Nordics, and I would say add today the tall whites and others, but going back to the 3 groups being described of going back to 270 million years, the reptilians preferred to go underground in all of the hot desert areas of the Earth. And with those distributions, below all of the 2/3 of the Earth is deep water. If you have technology that takes you through that water, through the mud, rock basins, and you come out into the caverns, that's where they have been. And that the Greys would be in the mountains and the reptilians would be underneath the desert lands of the Sahara and other hot places, and that they have always chosen there. Nothing has ever been said to me with actual hard knowledge about where do the tall whites base on Earth. When I've asked that question from people who have talked to me about working with them, they say the one base in this solar system that they know that the tall whites have had for a very long time is Ganymede. It is the largest moon in our solar system. It is around Jupiter, so it's Jupiter's largest moon as well. And that has been, Ganymede has been associated with the tall whites for me for a long time. So you put all of this together and you are looking at different extraterrestrials and different civilizations in perhaps different decades and eras on our planet, with some consistencies in the 3 that the DIA analyst gave me in December 1999, 270 million years ago, inside of the center of the Earth, inside the big mountain chains, and underneath the hot desert sands for 3 different groups. If there are any of you tonight here who have additional information, please send it to Earthfiles at earthfiles.com. Ian helps me go through, and I learn every week from more and more and more of you. And Ian, what do we have next? Hopefully, our grapefruit is having a problem, and sometimes we don't know if it's sunspots. We don't know what it is.
I'm here, Linda.
Here Ian is there, but
Yes,
sometimes it goes out.
Me, so that's fine. My point that I was making just before we got cut off, I was talking about these statistics. The statistics, I believe, are that the water covers 71% of the Earth's surface, of which probably 25%, if that has been mapped properly. So a lot of it is unknown. It comes back to Mike Basil, for example, commenting that it's really good to hear this subject because he's recently been reminiscing about the James Cameron's The Abyss. And it also feeds into what people are saying, that maybe these ETs are a lot closer to home than we thought. Rebecca Menon lives in Lake Michigan. She says, I've lived on a beach of Lake Michigan my whole life. She can't see them close enough with a camera, but has seen them through telescopes. So again, we have reports of UFOs over and USOs over large bodies of water throughout the planet, around places all over the planet where there's large bodies of water. You reached out as well to Don K. Johnson. He says that he's to people who have got experience with military backgrounds. Don K. Johnson says in the chat he's got a recorded conversation with a Navy sonar guy who tells him a story about tracking a fast USO from a nuclear sub in the 60s.
Tracking, it just broke out, tracking from a nuclear sub.
Yeah, tracking a fast-moving USO from a nuclear sub in the 1960s.
Well, there's no question that there are layers and layers and layers of activity in our planet, around our planet, in this solar system, and on into the Milky Way galaxy. Doesn't it just seem totally quaint to even say the words anymore? Are we alone in the universe? Doesn't that seem even preposterous to ask?
Absolutely. I think we're more or less accepting that these days. Another thing is that I've met quite a lot of people, and I've spoken to people who have had abductions take place on a beach. Rebecca Menon, who lives at Lake Michigan, says she heard of a woman abducted by aliens walking along Malibu Beach at night. And I know this happens at beach locations, which again are sometimes locations in the early evening when there's not many people around, but again a large body of water.
Yeah, and what a lot of us humans, the idea that extraterrestrials would be very sophisticated with the different types of surfaces and water and all of it, and that water probably serves as a wonderful cover or division in a planet where you can go in and out, as I began today, and Lou Elizondo talked about this and stressed this, that we're talking about a technology that can come from outer space, whether it's coming from a solar system next door or coming from Ganymede or wherever, and can come into the upper atmosphere, come through the atmosphere, and go right into water, and then go right into land and never stop and do it all at a tremendous speed. That is part of the technology.
That's right. They demonstrate technology that we don't have, or that at least it's not readily available to us, and that's acknowledged by many people, including the military as well. Linda, Tracy Murray says she can't wait for Earthfiles. This is the favourite time of her week. She says you're an absolute legend, and that segues nicely to the Contact in the Desert appearance, where you're actually going to be on the Legends panel with the other great legends of ufology, including Whitley Strieber, Travis Moulton, Richard Dolan. I think it's all there. We're going to post some links to Contact in the Desert here, and just remind everybody that the dates for Contact in the Desert, here it is. The pioneers who paved the way for the legends of ufology. There's Russell Targ in there, as well as George Norrie as well.
Yeah, it should be really fun. And if the Pentagon would let up on their restrictions of the, we'll say the world beyond the Pentagon, so that we could start having more congressional hearings and pick up on that inertia that it felt like the summer a year ago, that we, by now, that we would at least have the headline. So I hope that all of you who are here and in the very many countries that tune into Earthfiles, which is wonderful to feel like we're getting together on the planet with the same information, but that if people began asking their congressional representatives, hold more hearings, it's very clear that scientists are talking about the work that they have done in the field of UFOs and phenomena and physics that are not human-based, and that there is a tremendous amount of evolutionary work that is going on privately and secretly, completely out of the public, related to what we have been learning with other intelligences. And to open it all up, the question that keeps hanging out there is, why did they classify reality in World War II and not declassify as we got into the 21st century? So there's a lot of facets, and the more you all in the United States, let your representatives know that you want to know the truth, maybe it will help Congress to at least be adding to holding hearings, because I think one of the best things that happened was David Grush being able to talk, even if it was under duress. His information opened up other doors that keep opening, and that's what we also need to see happen. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, okay, Linda. Tom the Man TV is in the chat today, and he also references perhaps his experiences with perhaps ETs who may be tall whites or Nordics. He says, I used to be called by people who wore blue jumpsuits with white boots and had blonde hair. And he also has a question, and the question is, can people who have had ET experiences suffer from PTSD?
Oh, of course. And the second one, yes. PTSD is part of the reason why people like Dr. John Mack at Harvard got involved with human abductions. The stress, the trauma, oh, huge. I've interviewed about 3,000 people over the last 45 years. And there are some people that they begin shaking and cannot stop, depending upon what aspect that they are talking about. So I think that there are so many misunderstandings because there is so little open public discussion, and that to be on a planet that has so many layers of lies just doesn't make any sense. So let's keep trying to open up the topics that you all can participate in. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, okay, we've got another question here from Barber0611. Linda, do you know about any upcoming congressional inquiries into the UFO UAP phenomenon? I guess we should also include the USO phenomenon in that as well.
I think that there are efforts trying to organize in different offices, and I hope that there will be more openness before 2024 is out. But paralleling this year, I don't think that I have seen so many, whether they are personal emails or proton mails or comments on television, radio, or science papers that are being published, as about things like, are we going to have a micronova from the sun? How dangerous will it be? Will there be some interaction with black hole energy that might cause floods. There's a growing list, as if there is a back wall that seems to be setting up, that there are all kinds of problems, potential dangers in front of us, and that the government can argue, oh, well, that's why we have to keep it quiet, because we can't have everybody under duress. Others argue, well, we need to tell everybody what may be coming so that people can psychologically get used to it, and that will help keep them strong. And there are so many arguments that I have heard people in the last few months about, are we headed towards something that is not just the revolution of a headline, we're not alone in the universe, and we're going to introduce you to tall whites, Nordics, tall grays, blues, short artificial intelligent grays, and you can just keep on doing this, that there's many different possibilities of interaction with beings that know more about our planet and our solar system and our galaxy than we do, by a long shot. And another part of what has been emerging, but there is not a lot of dialogue about it in news or anything, even though I find it one of the most fascinating subjects of everything that is happening now. And that is here, this was April 24th, not very long ago. And this was in the Science magazine, Our Planet. And this was the headline: a scientist says he has the evidence that we live in a simulation, which is a hologram, and that he's writing about this, that the second law of infodynamics could prove it, which is his making almost a slight joke in the various laws of different dynamics. And he says in this is Professor Vopson. I did not know of him before this article just came out. He is Professor Melvin Vopson, V-O-P as in Paul, S as in Sam, O-N, and he is at the University of Portsmouth. And what I like about this, and I'm going to try to see if I can do an interview and do both Earthfiles YouTube channel and more at Earthfiles, the issue of are we in a holographic universe has been kicking around since 1991, at least publicly, when Michael Talbot wrote Our Holographic Universe. And Bud Hopkins then, when the book came out, told me that Michael Talbot was one of his abductees. And Bud and I had a discussion about that on an airline for a couple of hours, where he was going through about what Michael Talbot was exchanging from what he was learning with beings that he was having abductions with, and was in the book Our Holographic Universe. And the question then that Bud and I had a fun time talking about was, well, my God, if we are in a holographic universe, where is the projection? What is the energy? What is the physical transmission of the light? Because a hologram, by definition, is a projection of light into a three-dimensional form or other. And ever since that book, Our Holographic Universe, and up to today with news like this, which becomes exciting because it means that this would be science that would reinforce what Michael Talbot, as an abductee, wrote about and had published back in 91 or 92. And then, to me, it becomes even more fascinating to talk with more physicists about, well, how would this work? How would we, and 3 trillion stars in this universe, how did it happen that we're in a hologram? who is projecting the ever-evolving hologram of this universe and the matter world with its laws that we have. I just find this like my mind is on fire, and I want to know more, not less. I want to understand this. Is this universe, which was suggested by a person that I interviewed years ago, is this entire universe a university? And the university would be teaching the soul how to interact with a certain matter universe. And that out of all of this that goes on for millions of years, there is an end goal in trying to get stronger souls, because in this particular projected universe, the opposing forces are strong, that we would call dark and light. And we've all talked about this before, but it's beginning to be, it feels like it's more present that in discussions with people, and that abductees themselves, when you talk with them now today that are somehow being taken out of their bedroom or wherever, that they are returning also with a feeling that something huge is on the line in all of this, and that we on Earth, we are looking at a little lens, other parts of the universe, so different. And that makes it, to me, exciting to keep learning and doing more and more of this, and hoping that we will finally get past the age of lies and untruths and move into an age where it was so exciting and it really made a difference for everybody to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And on that score, I wonder, Ian, if is there in our Earthfiles YouTube audience tonight, is there a person or persons who have ever and are in the abduction syndrome, who have ever had a vivid dream or a being in front of them in which the information that was coming into this part of their brain, whether it was by movies or symbols, that seemed to be trying to teach about how the universe that we are in is truly being projected with rules that apply to holograms? It would be fascinating to compare any of you who might, like if there were three, would the three experiences, the three download of information, would they be same or different? Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Jerry Wills's experiences as well. But yes, we would like to hear from anybody who's got any experience or any experiences that relate to being told about the simulation theory or the simulation universe or anything else. Please contact us at Earthfiles.
Yeah, and Ian,
at earthfiles.com.
it may be that Ian, it may be that a lot of people don't know who Jerry Wills is, and he is a fascinating person who his bride watched him at a rock door. It was not a real door, it was carved rock in Peru. And he disappeared into the rock. And he has talked to me at Earthfiles, and we did an interview here at the Earthfiles YouTube channel a year or so ago. And it was, to Jerry, it was so absolutely real that he somehow merged and went through that rock and then continued into this amazing trip in the universe to another place, another dimension he didn't really know, and then comes back with this firm information, as far as he's concerned, that those rock doors in Peru, there's one that he went through, and there are other cases like this, variations. he moved through the rock, that the subatomic particles in his body and those in the rock were somehow meshed together so that he could go through in matter form. That exact same description comes up in abduction cases of people in their bedroom who are somehow levitated out of the bed. They're levitated in the air. They come to a window, a wall, or a door, and they go right through even the ceiling. And almost always people say it felt like a million feathers tickling my skin. I've heard that so many times. What is that process of taking human biological matter through other subatomic and atomic and matter without any problem? It's exactly like what was said in the interview today, earlier, by John Smith, that it is the same kind of thing of how do these UFOs come out of the space, the sky, go down into the ocean, come out, and they seem to be somehow in a field that protects it from something else and allows the craft to do all of these mind-blowing things. All of it, all of us, the human level, the holographic level, the biological versus AI, all of it. It seems like it's just quickening constantly every day. I feel like I can't read enough. I can't stay up with enough news. It's exciting in spite of all of the war and conflict, which I hope will end. And I hope that in the future, if we all are seeing a peaceful world in which we finally have been told the truth and we are actually collaborating with and working with beings who know so much more than we do, and that nothing is frightening and nothing is dangerous, that it is all exciting, provoking us to be better souls, better people, and better stewards of dear planet Earth. What happens if we lost Earth? And in that note, I would like to agape hug everybody here tonight. Thank you for your support. Keep coming. There is so much more that I already have to report and unfold over the next several weeks. I really love you guys, and we all need to keep working toward light and peace and agape love with each other and our dear, dear furry souls. Thank you.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.